Right now, we want to bring in a Love to Lives Caitlin Ross, because we know that 2 students and 2 teachers among those who were killed today, just horrible. And I know you've been talking with some loved ones and friends of those who lost their lives.
It is beyond tragic, and we are learning more about those people right now. We're waiting to identify them until we hear directly from police. We want to make sure that those friends and loved ones and family members all have a chance to hear that news. But what we know about these people who were killed is they were all remarkable. We're hearing stories of heroism, the 2 teachers who were killed, protecting students, the kids, those students who were killed. We're hearing they were in the same class as the shooter, that they knew him, that they were in class with him. And when you were listening to the witness describe what happened as that shooter came to her door, went right next door, those were classmates of his. And so we're hearing now from family members who had children in those classes that the parents of the students who were killed were frantic looking for them in the hours before they were notified by police. One boy who was in class was a special needs student, had autism. His family was outside for hours making pleas on social media, begging anyone who had seen him to come forward. They were notified around 3:15 in the afternoon, and this family friend told me they were absolutely devastated. She says there is a feeling of heaviness in the entire city, that you go out and you walk around and everyone is in mourning, and they will continue to be in mourning as these stories come out, as we hear more about these victims. I think there's a lot more to learn about what happened inside that school today.
And the unfortunate piece of this is that people are still learning more about who maybe lost their lives. They're seeing these names on social media. Again, we are waiting for official confirmation, but people in that community can't help but start to hear, and that grieving process is about to begin for so many. As we again understand, it's 2 students and 2 teachers. These are people that these students and staff members were seeing every day in class for many years.
Right, and you raised such an important point there, that this is such a small community, and that plays so heavily into people's reactions here. It's because they all know each other. They know and support each other, and if they didn't know the person directly, they have a family member or a friend who did. And so as you're hearing all of these names, there really is this sense of devastation, that it's 4 people that they all knew so well and grew up with that are now lost.
I think the sheriff kind of underscored that when he talked about during his news conference. He said, I was born and raised in this community. I have kids in this school district. I went to these high schools. So I think whether you're, someone in law enforcement, a 911 dispatcher, a nurse, everyone can find some way to be impacted and feel the grief with this.
Right, exactly. That was the trauma doctor I was speaking to earlier, said, it's hard enough to do your job when there's a tragedy, but then in these towns, in these communities, these are people who who are coming into your hospital with gunshot wounds. And so it's, they train for this. I saw a really interesting post from the Barrow County Sheriff's Office from years ago about how they train these active shooter drills constantly. And they do it in Barrow County, they do it with force. So they're confronted by people who are waiting in these classrooms, and they know how to respond. The 2 SROs who did respond likely saved countless lives today. But thinking of that mechanism of response when you're in that moment of panic and it's people that it's almost unthinkable. So I'm so glad you said that, Jonathan, that this is so difficult for those first responders who are on these scenes and having to do everything they can to save lives.
And when you think about it, it's anyone who's lost a loved one knows how difficult it is to deal with that loss. But imagine doing it at this age as well. Right. Grief is already difficult enough to process, but to deal with it in such a violent manner in this way is truly devastating. Caitlin, thank you so much.